Connections Homeschool, and today we are talking about the number one thing you can do in order to save money in your homeschool and simplify your homeschool to connect with what matters most. Now that number one thing, I believe, is vision planning. The Bible tells us where there is no vision, the people perish. And so we're gonna look at what does it mean to establish a vision for your homeschool? How do you go about doing that? And how can it help you overall to save money and focus on what's most important? Now, when we're talking about vision planning, what we're looking at is the purpose, the why behind your homeschool. When you start homeschooling, you may find that there are a million different directions in which you can go. I literally felt like I was thrown into this highway system where this group was going this way and that one was going that way. And I just fell in line with what my neighbor was doing because that was the only interaction I'd had with someone who had homeschooled. Prior to that, I didn't even know homeschool existed. And so I fell into the curriculum that they chose and kind of just followed along until I saw this great big world of homeschooling and instantly felt overwhelmed with which is the best way. I started looking at homeschool philosophies. I started looking at different curriculum and resources, and it was just mind-blowing and in many ways such a distraction because I would jump on this tangent or highway and head off in that direction. Then I'd see this person over here talking about how great this style was or this curriculum was, and then I'd jump on that one and I'd head that way. And what I found early on in my journey was that I was following what everyone else was doing a lot of the time, but even when I found my curriculum, it was easy to be enslaved to my curriculum. Now there's one incident that just really has stuck with me over the years. And it was about my son at the time. So he's now 14, but this was early on. So he was about 6 or 7 years old and he had just watched Up. And in this story, this cartoon, there is this character who was a wilderness explorer. And he had this backpack and he had his badges, and it's probably most like a trail life situation where you earn these badges based on being out in nature. And so he was so into this that he cut up a shirt out of fabric and he stapled it together so he could wear it. And he cut out a sash and he made these badges. And I'm glad to say that for a little while I entertained that. I looked up some ideas. We went on a nature hike and he earned some badges and it was so much fun. But then I started to panic. I started to be like, well, this is all fun and games and this is great, but our curriculum says we need to be doing this over here and we're not there right now. So we need to keep going. Let's put that away. And I look back now as a more seasoned homeschooler and think, oh my goodness, I missed it. I missed that opportunity to just engage in that. He was interested in nature. He was interested in exploring in the wilderness. And there were so many opportunities available to me that I missed because I was headed in this direction, not knowing that I really wanted to be over here. These scenarios kind of played out over the years as I was learning and shifting and understanding homeschooling a bit more and what the Lord was doing in and through our homeschool. I remember a time when he wanted to study Native Americans. And again, we're not there yet. We're studying ancient history, so we can't possibly study Native Americans till we get there. Well, by the time we got there, a couple of years later, he was no longer interested and I missed that window of opportunity. And so after a while, I really took the time to say, why am I doing this? Where do I want to be? Where am I headed in all this? Because if you don't understand that why, deep down, it's so easy to want to give up. It's so easy to be distracted. It's so easy to spend more money thinking that the answer is 2 more curriculums away. So if I just buy this curriculum, things are going to be wonderful. If I just buy this activity that so-and-so said was great, things are going to fall into place. And I found in my own journey that I bought way too much curriculum that I never did use, or I pressured myself to use it because I spent that money and then felt enslaved in trying to get it all done and checking off boxes and missing out on what was in front of me and what was most important. And so identifying that was key. And I had to take a step back and really take it to prayer, really reflect on what does God say is most important? What does He value? And how can I align this homeschool journey to His purpose and His will? And how can I make that of utmost importance in our day-to-day activities? Because it's one thing to say that God is the most important thing in our homeschool, and it's another thing to live it. What does that look like each and every day? Through this process of reflection, I created my homeschool bucket planning system. So it begins with vision and it breaks down that process all the way to the day-to-day part, where each and every day we are working toward that mission statement. We are working toward that purpose and that vision for our homeschool. And that process is key to really staying focused. How many of you out there struggle with things like FOMO, the fear of missing out, and feeling distracted to try all the things? How many of you may find yourselves, like me, buying all this curriculum because it looks so good, and again, just feeling overwhelmed with all the things? I want to simplify that for you and share what really, really helped me. And I put all this together for that purpose of sharing it. You don't have to purchase this in order to go through that process. I'm going to take you through that with these videos. So this is the first video of our series. I want you to keep a lookout for the next few that come out if this is helpful to you. But feel free to grab a composition notebook, a journal of some sort. I'm going to take you through some questions that will help you identify your vision and your mission statement for your homeschool. Feel free to follow along, pause along the way to record these things, then grab a cup of coffee and some tea and take your time as you start mapping out what your values are and your purpose is. If you want the ready-made version, like I said, I have this on my website available for purchase. It supports my website and channel. So feel free to check that out if you're interested. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link below. But this is step one. If you do purchase it, you're going to get different documents. And the very first one is about setting up your binders. So I'm actually going to switch this up quite a bit. I have some copies here. Hold on. That I've already printed for my binder. And so this will be the cover page, and I have my binder spines. So I'm going to reconfigure it this year. I have my tabs here, so I'll go ahead and share those with you. These are the binder spines and the tabs. Before then, I had it kind of bound like this, but I'm really gonna look at putting it in a binder moving forward. So I'll take you through that in the next video. For now, we're gonna look at vision. And these are the questions that I put into my planner to help me get to that purpose. So number one, what are your reasons for homeschooling? Brainstorm a list below. And so taking the time to get your reasons down. Is it an academic focus for you? Is it protecting your children's childhood at this point and their innocence with everything going on in our culture? Is it a means for discipleship? Is it a means for building relationships with your children? What are your reasons? Take a few minutes to jot those down. And then underneath that, once you've taken a few minutes to do that, list your top 3 reasons in order of importance. And so here I have my 3 boxes underneath. And for me, it had to do with discipleship, having the opportunities to share our faith with our children, to share God and His Word with our children. Time to connect with what matters most, our family, ministry, friends, and the freedom, oh my goodness, the freedom to follow God's leading. There's so much freedom in homeschool, and it can be so easy to miss it when you find yourself distracted or overwhelmed by someone else's vision that may not necessarily be in accordance with what God has for you in your homeschool. So just having that freedom was important to me. Number 3, what do you want your homeschool to look like, and what do you want it to sound like? So taking some time to just kind of think through that. What do you want things to look like? Where do you want to have your homeschool? Is it going to be at a desk or a table or a couch? Is it going to move around throughout the day? Do you envision yourself being out at a library setting or a public setting or a park? What do you want it to look like? And then what do you want it to sound like? So some things that I put here is I wanted joyful learning. I wanted it to sound like encouraging words. I wanted it to sound like the singing of hymns or classical inspiring music playing in the background, because I know how important music is for cognitive thinking and ability. I wanted to have time for outdoor play and walks and projects, couch subjects, field trips, and so forth. Number 4 was, what are some things you do not want to see in your homeschool? And so I had to also take a step back to do that. What don't I want to see? Well, for me, I don't want to see yelling. I didn't want to see bickering and rushing and just checking off boxes. I didn't want to see constant curriculum hopping or being a slave to a curriculum. I didn't want to see being too crazy busy or having too many distractions or being frustrated or winging it. Or negative talk is another one I wrote in there. And then number 5 was, what can you do to make sure that they do not become a part of your homeschool? Those negative things that you don't want to see, what can you do to keep them out of your homeschool? And so I just put a few notes in mine. Mine was something like pray each day, stay rooted in the word, walk in the spirit, follow God's leading. And I just had a few other things there about modeling godly behavior, being that example. And it comes first and foremost from my walk with the Lord, so that I can then share that journey with the children. Number 6, create a bucket list of events and experiences you want to share with your children in your homeschool. And so I started this was a brain dump. I just started kind of thinking about, I want to take them here. I want to do this. I want to serve others. We want to have book parties and road trips and mission trips and all these things. So this is a brain dump, but this is an area to just get excited. This is where the bucket list starts coming into play, where you're starting to make these goals of the things that you want to accomplish in your homeschool, so that when you get these opportunities, you can capitalize on them. But also so that when other opportunities come up that aren't necessarily a part of that, you're able to say no and have the confidence to know that it's okay. You're going to be working toward what you value as a family. Number 7, what are your hopes for your children upon graduation? Where do you see them at the end? When I was in public school education, everything we did in curriculum development and writing and instruction was about starting with the end in mind. And so that's why I plugged that in here. Where do you want to end up? So that once you have that piece, you can then back it up to make sure that each and every day you are redeeming that time and you're working toward that. So I put here, my goal is to fully prepare our children for God's purposes. May they love God, love others, and love learning. May they follow his lead every step of the way. That was the most important thing for me personally in our homeschool. Number 8, what kind of homeschool teacher do you want to be? How do you want your children to remember you? That was a big ouch in some ways. It was a big eye-opener for me as I wrote that question and actually took the time to ponder through that. I wrote things like, I want to have a meek and quiet spirit, showing God's love and grace. Like, I want them to remember me as a joyful mother, one that was happy to be with them, one that saw them as worth this time and effort that I was putting into our homeschool. I wanted them to see me as loving and nurturing and always pointing them to Christ. And so taking the time to kind of flesh that out really helped me stay focused on those particular attributes. And also to pray about those attributes and asking the Lord to help me with those, because those aren't things that are natural to me in all cases. And so, of course, through Christ, we can overcome. But a big part of it is first recognizing our need for him in this journey and what he calls us to and how he calls us to grow. Number 9, list 9 words that capture your vision for your homeschool. And so I just jotted them down in these boxes. I had some little boxes there for my brainstorming. And then number 10, create a mission statement for your homeschool. So now that you've gone through this whole process, put it all together into one statement that's going to guide your decision making, guide your purchases, guide how you live each and every day through your homeschool and in your homeschool. So I put on here that our homeschool exists to nurture the connections our children have with God, family, truth, goodness, and beauty. It strives to equip our children in wisdom and love so that they may rise up to fulfill all that God calls them to. Now I reworded it a bit, but I'm going to kind of cover this up a little bit here. And this page right here says our homeschool mission statement. And so this is a place where you can either write it down. I have a lined version for you. And then I also have one that's just blank so that you can type it up and print it out and frame it, put it up on the refrigerator, or keep it in your binder as that reminder that you look to throughout the year or every year to stay focused on those key areas. I also have a page on there for a prayer that you can use to write a prayer for your homeschool. And then I have a page that's broken down like this by each of the buckets that we're going to be going over more in depth in the next section, but just establishing those big picture goals. So I'll share that with you next video, but coming up with your vision is going to be the key to setting forth your path. Which highway system are you going to jump on, and how will you know you're on the right one? Every curriculum you choose, every activity you do, every philosophy that you embrace is going to lead you to someone's vision for your homeschool. The question is, will it be yours? Will it be the one that God has in store for you and your homeschool? So take some time to think about that. Take some time to pray about that. And then take some time to just reflect and write down those responses so that you can then be prepared to map out that journey and to make all that come to fruition day in and day out with the Lord's leading, so that ultimately you can fulfill His will and purpose for your homeschool. Thanks for watching, friends. I hope you found that enjoyable and helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. It's an easy and free way to support my channel. Come back next week for video 2 of this series, where we will be looking at this big picture and what does that entail, what is necessary, what's not, and how can you use that to help you establish your goals to reach your vision. Thanks again.